Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Church Encourager podcast. We have the discussion guide for Kingdom Influence Part 10 that we did this last weekend at Keys Vineyard Church. Dad, great message. You know, you were talking about hungering and thirsting for righteousness. And in the sermon, you described righteousness as being who you're supposed to be rather than just doing good things. So how does this definition change our perspective on what it means to live a righteous life?
Yeah, I think that gets clouded a lot of times because it becomes very self-righteous when we think what it means to be righteous is these are the things that you do. And that the reality is the word isn't about things that you do. It's about who you're supposed to be. It's a being thing. Yep. It's an identity thing. And that the identity is the one that we were given from the very beginning in Genesis 1 and 2 was to reflect the image of God. We're supposed to be imagers. And we use that as a verb because people read, created in the image of God. We must look like God. It's not it. I mean, it could be part of it, I guess. But the reality is, it's a reflection. We're to be His representative, His partners, his whatever that looks like in the planet, and reflect His image into the world around us. That the idea is that people can, as they see us, they get an idea of who God really is because we're just image bearers. Mm-hmm. And it all ties back to in the temple and how when a false god would erect a temple to the false god, the last thing they would put in the temple was an image of that god. And that's where people would go. But when God builds the cosmic temple, when He creates creation, in fact, the same pattern there, but the image that is there is not, it's us, we're the image. And so righteousness to me is that understanding it means that the image bearing, the image thing that we do is becoming clearer because of what we've said, saying yes to Jesus and then allowing Holy Spirit to change us. But it's not about, I'm righteous because these are the rules I follow. What that's like self-righteous, and that's the thing we want to avoid. So it's an identity thing. And the big deal was that the opposite of righteous is sinner. And Paul does a really good job explaining that through the one man, because of his actions, Adam, they all became sinners because that's right. But through the other man, Jesus, they all become again righteous in Him. So it's a fascinating understanding. I think it really helps and keeps us then hopefully from that off ramp that I talked about of self-righteousness, which seems easier but isn't. It doesn't get you to the destination.
Yeah. You mentioned that off ramp and you made this great point. I think it was in the Oben podcast and obviously in the sermon too, how we take the off ramp of self-righteousness to try to shortcut the destination to righteousness. And that makes us judges instead of ambassadors. Can you give us some signs that we might be taking this wrong turn? What would sort of be like, on the advertisements to self-righteousness, like the Buc-ee's signs we see, hey, get some beaver nuggets in 794 miles. What are some of those signs?
If you start to look at people like more as problems than people whom God loves, and if they're not in relationship with Him, He desperately wants them to be in relationship with them. If you start to, we talked about this the other day, it's really a good picture. If you start to label instead of love, man, that should be on the off ramp. Love to label people, turn here. And a lot of people have said yes to that, and that's really good. We should do that. I just had that one on the fly. And so it's the same thing. If you value opinion more than you value people, that'd be another great sign. Turn up here 5 miles, right? Yeah. That's sort of the idea of I've said this last couple of weeks. We kind of lost the plot a little bit, and we're settling for something less than the full and abundant life that we're called to, because if you settle for being a judge, you don't get to be an ambassador. And that's what it's all about. That's the vocation. That's what we do.
We have preached that message. I remember I've preached it several times. We're ambassadors. That's the It's what we were created to be, reflect his image. And I was talking with my son the other day, and I was like, hey, when you're going out, whether it's to the gym for your class there or wherever, you're a representative of the family. And we're like that as Christians. We bear the family name, if you will. So I can try to think of it in my own terms. It's like, hey, like it looks bad when you make me look bad. So don't do that. And that was what I told my poor son. But, fortunately, God's big enough to cover us in grace. So, that's where the analogy falls apart. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
bear a family resemblance. There's a family name. We're image bearers. We're ambassadors. And
Yeah.
that was a great point.
And as you say that, it brings up in mind, that's really um, don't take the name of God in the Lord in vain.
That's the commandment. Hey,
And people think that means you're not supposed to cuss. It's not. It means you bear the family name when you said yes to Jesus. Don't take that in vain. That's a big deal.
that's a big deal. You make me look bad when you do
Yeah.
those things. My poor kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
yeah, that was that. Yeah, that's it, right? You asked us to examine what we're actually hungry for by looking at things like our calendars, our conversations, and our thought processes. Um, what do you think these areas of our lives reveal about our desires?
well, I mean, are we making time for the relationship that we need to have with God? It's not a works thing, but relationships take time. And anybody in good relationships know it takes time. You talk about time with your sons, time with your wife, time with your friends, time with us. We that it all requires time. And where are you spending your time was kind of my thing. And I know I've had this more and more over the last 6 or 8 months, how much time was just sort of had started it just sort of sneak away by checking social media. And again, I don't pick on that. It's all good, but it can be a time waster. And all of a sudden, if you look at your schedule and you've spent 3 hours doom scrolling and
It's a rough look.
30 seconds praying, something is off,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And again, this isn't say people go, well, that's a righteous. No, it's my identity in the Lord is so precious that I want to spend time with the one who has made it possible to have life forever. And yet, these other passions, these other hungers can stir up within us that seem easier to, you know what I mean? It's easier to satisfy. It's like settling for like a fast. Here's what it's like. It'd be like going to a convenience store and getting one of them prepackaged sandwiches
Oh,
and sitting there
oh, my
for
stomach
2 or 3 weeks, right on the edge of being
turned.
brown, and or going home and taking the 20 minutes that it would take to make something different.
Yeah,
Uh,
sometimes you have to cook it. There's a game we play at home in the refrigerator. It's called lunch meat roulette. So you hope for the best and go from there. It's even worse at some of those convenience stores. Now,
yeah,
if you go to a Buc-ee's, you can trust that fresh brisket off the board. But
yeah.
I
Well,
don't
we
know.
do
I
love the
Yeah,
Buc-ee's, but you know what
yeah.
I mean. And I have in my haste and in my life, there was times when I would stop, and that would be, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I haven't done that
Not
in a
to
long time.
discredit the convenience store owners
No, no,
amongst
no,
us,
no.
but
Yeah.
like yeah, we've all been there.
The
And
packages and
oh
the
yeah,
little
yeah.
card thing. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could say that with almost any.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we
That
don't need
just
to
popped
dive
in my
deeper into
brain.
that.
Yeah.
Right. We'll start complaining about food choices of
No,
our
no, no.
past
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
as we talk about food, maybe we're getting hungry, and I think we'll kind of end our talk here with this. How do we cultivate a genuine spiritual appetite for God and His righteousness without trying to manufacture fake hunger?
Uh, and again, I think it really a choice that you have to start with. I really do want to plug in. And then for me, I don't know how a lot of people do it. I do very well on repetition. I like something that sort of happens every day, kind of around the same time. That works for me. Doesn't work for everybody. And then I don't take it for granted. I start to make connections that I need. Um, And then recognizing maybe where you're taking shortcuts that aren't leading to, that are, satisfying it in other ways, and leading that process badly. So, because a lot of things are quick and easy in our culture,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we'll settle for that, and it sort of does maybe take some of that type of hunger I'm talking about away, not a physical hunger, but the other one. And we need to just not satisfy for less than, and plug in. And it requires a little more, but it's way more worth it. You're not earning anything, but you have to give it that time. And I think I said in a message the other day, there's so much loud coming at us
Mm-hmm.
that we'll often settle for that. But where life is in that quiet, ever steady voice of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to make sure that you're okay, dialing down so you can hear that.
You mentioned in the sermon, this isn't the discussion guide, but I thought it was a good point. That, and as you were talking about it, I had a picture come into mind. You were talking about how the more we hunger and thirst for righteousness, the more satiated we become. And, if you're like me, you're a psychology expert because you took a psychology class at a community college, almost 20 years ago, and you learn a thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that? You end up with this triangle, and what's the big thing right at the very bottom? I think it's food and shelter, right? And his whole thing is you get that, then you kind of go up the top. But really, like, when you hunger and thirst for righteousness, it's like there you're met with God. You start there, and He's already got all your needs covered. There's no more ladders you have to climb. It's just
Right.
you pursue God, and He meets you there, and you got it. And so I think it's cool how there's always these paradoxical things happening with the Lord, and it was cool. Anyway, that was the thought that kind of came into my head. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that any, or if you.
Well, yeah, that's the hunger and thirst are you said it, they're the primary needs, always have been. And
Yeah,
if those aren't satisfied, you won't do anything else.
right,
But once those are satisfied, even, and we know this physically, then you can go on to do all sorts of things. Once
right.
hunger is taken care of, people become creative and productive and
Hmm.
learn, and
And
society
that's where you
changes.
start thriving, and
Yeah,
but
and
it
and the
starts there.
kingdom is the same way for
Yeah.
us. Once we get that's filled by Him as we pursue Him, that's when things really happen. If we don't press into that, then we're missing the full and abundant life that He's called us to.
Yeah. So it's good. It's both paradox and kind of fits in perfectly as well. So,
Yeah,
he meets us where we're at, and satisfies all of our needs. It's amazing to just think of what God has done for me, and those around me. He's always got us, and it's so cool what He's able to do. But anyway, Dad, thank you for this message, and for the series. Really looking forward to part 11 this week. Do you want to give us a sneak peek of where we'll be going this
mercy.
weekend?
It's all
Mercy.
about the merciful and what that means. So I'm really looking forward to that. You're
Uh,
working on it now.
yeah, I saw the notes for it. Looked good. So anyway, that's good for today. Thanks, Dad. And to everybody listening, thank you. We love you and appreciate you all. Be with us for our online Bible Institute Network podcast on Thursday, and church this weekend at Keys Vineyard with part 11 talking about mercy. So anyway, God bless you all. We will see you soon.
Bye-bye.